PlayStation believes in great games.
PlayStation.
Hello and good day to you, my beautiful podcast listener friends. I do hope you are well. Welcome to crossbuttonvr, a beginner's journey into PSVR2, a podcast for those who want to share in our newcomers' enthusiasm for the world of VR. I am your host, Laurie, and I'm joined by my fellow VR virgins, Ben and Alex. How are we today, chaps?
Very well.
Really, really good.
Really good.
Really good.
Yeah. I've had a day off, so I'm...
Yeah. You've had nice. You've been brunching, haven't you?
I did treat myself to a little brunch and a lot of
cheeky
gaming.
treat, a little brunch.
It was lovely.
You took out not one but two handhelds to the cafe. Or
I did indeed. You
restaurant.
never know. You never know.
And they say I'm extravagant.
That's
They do say
slightly
that.
less.
They do say that.
Yeah, with good reason.
With your gear stick.
But yeah. Took out
Don't
a
talk about
gift.
my gear stick.
But I was wearing the VR headset the whole time I was out.
Good.
Today.
Well, I should
Committed
hope
to the cause.
I'd expect nothing
Exactly.
less.
Yeah.
You're there playing, I was going to say Beat Saber, but something ridiculous that waves around, tentacular in the cafe. Just everyone's like, what the fuck is the guy doing?
I still haven't played that yet, actually. I'm supposed to be reviewing that one, aren't I?
You are.
Oh, it's a good one.
Okay.
You can get my son might review it. My son Zach, he might review it for us because he absolutely loves it. It's absolute
He'll probably
chaos.
do a far better job than I
Absolute
should.
chaos watching him play it, but that's probably as the devs intended. Cool. Well, before we get into the review section, if anyone would like to support us, please do give this podcast a sub on the service you're using, and do please leave us a review too. It really helps. Follow us on Twitter at crossbuttonvr and at the crossplayers. Or check out thecrossplayers.com for links to all of our content and our Discord. And just a reminder there that we are part of the Cross Players. So if you like this podcast, and you bloody well should do by now, episode 3, I think we feel like we're getting good at this. Do check out our other podcasts. Please do. If you really do love the show, please show your love via patreon.com/thecrossplayers, and you can contribute as little as £2 a month to help us produce the show and gain entry into our lovely WhatsApp group. So before we get properly started on the reviews we've got for people this week, let's just have a little quick recap of how we've been finding our week. It's been week 2, week 3, whatever it is. It feels like I've had it. It's a key integral part of my life now. So I've how long it's been here for. But
2 weeks.
how's the last week been for you, gents?
Well, Alex, you were saying on Crosscast that you've now got into a nice rhythm with kind of... It's not overtaking normal console gaming,
No.
but it's like you're finding these pockets of time for VR and like doing like half an hour to an hour and then playing like a traditional game, right?
It
Is that
definitely
still the
feels.
case?
It definitely feels perfect for that. It's very much like, I've got half an hour. I can put this headset on, play a little bit of whatever game I'm playing, and you always feel like that half an hour is enough to be making progress in these games. It's not like, because you're not playing like a 40-50 hour open world game where you need to like grind and do this and do that. You need to sit and spend 2 or 3 hours at a time. You don't need to do that in the type of game we're getting on VR, and that's perfect. I'm really enjoying that fact of it. It can be, I've got 20 minutes just now, I can shove the headset on, do like maybe 4 stages of Tetris. Quite happy just to have that little break almost. I'm enjoying that tremendously.
Yeah, I think it's a nice, and I guess we'll all probably settle into this rhythm, but I think, Laurie, you might have even said it on the very first episode, that it's almost like a complementary thing to normal gaming. So like, yeah, today I had a lovely brunch, took a handheld out with me and played some games on that. And that was just like, okay, this, great, brilliant experience. Played, I don't know, 2.5 hours probably outstayed my welcome in the cafe, to be fair. But then
It's like, so
I
you
did
really
order
need
an
to
extra
order
orange
a drink.
juice.
Okay.
yeah, the guilt kicked in. But then I got home and thought, right, I've got a quality little chunk of time now. I'll just try out some bits and bobs on VR, and it is just like that. It's just, it's just such a nice it's just a nice change, even though you're essentially doing the same thing. It just feels different.
Yeah, I would say that's my take from it. Is that you're not doing the same thing. I've played so many games this week. Like I was playing Synth Riders last night, and it's the first sort of rhythm action game like that I've played, like ever or anything. I've never played Beat Saber. And it was like, oh my god, this is so fun. This is so like unlike any other game that I've ever played. It's ridiculous. I feel like, I'm sure my wife was in stitches watching me, but then she had to go, and she absolutely loved it as well. I was like, you see. And like to what you're saying there, Alex, you could just jump in and play it for 3 minutes and come away with a big smile on your face. It's fantastic for that. And I love having so many of these games on the console digitally, so you can just flip between them all. I think that's good because they're all smaller games. You can have loads of them on your hard drive, and the SSD means that you can just jump in and out of them so quickly. There's very little kind of menus or loading or character. You don't ever have to do a kind of character creation screen or anything. It's not that sort of games. You just jump straight into stuff and can have fun.
Yeah, after you posted that video, obviously we are sharing videos of everything we're playing and getting extremely giddy about everything. But yeah, as soon as you sent that Synth Riders one, I was like, gonna need to get that. My son watched the video. He's like, yeah, we need that, Daddy. So yeah, that's another one for the list.
I know, I really wanted to play that today, but I had an absolute shit day at work, and I'm like, I want to put this headset on and dance that negativity away. So
exactly
after this, get a bit of time.
So another thing you could do if you've had a shit day at work and you want to do something with your PSVR2, this is a revelation today. So obviously you've got the cinema mode, or cinematic mode, whatever. I don't know about you guys, but I sort of, when I'm there on the home menu with this sort of big screen in front of me, I'm like, okay, it's functional, but it's basically just your normal PlayStation 5 home screen. What I did today was this chair I'm sitting in reclines all the way back, and it basically becomes the most comfortable cinema experience you will ever have, because you can tilt all the way back, and then if you hold down the start button and it realigns to right in front of your eyes, I'm basically looking up at a massive cinema screen. So I just put a YouTube video on, and I was just watching it like, like that bit in Friends where Joey and Chandler just sit back in their recliners.
Yeah.
It just felt like that, but it was like a huge cinema screen, and I can just see myself, like maybe after this, just putting a film on, popping the headphones in, and just being like, wow. Because it was an absolute revelation. Definitely. And I didn't think I would use it for that at all. But yeah, super comfortable. And I recommend everyone give that a go. Get yourself a silly gamer chair and just kick back and relax.
Well, surely the sofa works as well. Just lay on the sofa.
Sure. I mean, if you've got a sofa. Yeah.
I
thought everyone had to clear out their sofas when they got the PSVR2 just to make room for the thing. But yeah, so that's good little find today that just made my day that much more fun.
The risk is you fall asleep and you wake up and your eyes are like, what have you been doing to me? Cooking your eyes for like.
Oh, but your eyes would be closed if you were sleeping, surely, Laurie.
Yeah, but it's going to be like coming through the kind of, I don't know.
We should say a disclaimer. We don't know that is actually the case.
No.
It may not. It may not burn your retina.
It microwaves your brain.
It's like a sunbed for your eyeballs.
Yeah,
I'm sure it's perfectly safe.
Well, yeah, it's all of the fools that played PSVR 1, they're like the guinea pigs, so if there was any problems, I'm sure they would all be blind by now. So the fact there's not mass reports of blindness following PSVR 1
exactly
gives me reassurance that it's safe.
Indeed.
I think, although there's a little bit of me there is still a little bit like, is this central? Good. Well, any other thoughts on this week of gaming? I haven't really played any other games. Like it's not really been a companion for me. It's just all I've been playing, and I think that's probably down to the game, which I'll come on to for my review. It's not the sort of game that you want to just treat as a companion. It's as good as this is like a real proper game. But we'll get to that. We'll get to that. Calm down, guys. Come on. We've got an order here. So I think let's start with you, Ben. Ben, which I think you've been playing. Well, tell us what you've been playing.
Sure, absolutely. I've been playing What the Bat. So, What the Bat finally answers the question we've all asked ourselves: what would it be like to have baseball bats for hands? Over the course of about 100 levels, this question's answered by dropping the player into increasingly ridiculous scenarios where they'll need to use their bat hands to journey through life. It's from the makers of What the Golf, so if you've played that, you'll know the kind of level of just silliness, ridiculously to expect. And I'm very happy to report that it lives up to that high standard. Keeps me laughing like, throughout the whole thing, and is a really good fit for the platform. The nature of it wouldn't work in 2D, so yeah, great fit for VR. So just as a bit of background, you start off just whacking baseballs to hit trophies, and when you hit a trophy, you get a little sort of kazoo sound, and then you move on to the next sort of scenario. So obviously part of the fun is seeing how ridiculous it gets and seeing that ramp up. So I don't want to give too much away, but just to give another kind of example of spoilers. But that genuinely is like the joy of it, is just seeing how silly it gets. But another early one is, so you're stood in front of a bathroom mirror. Obviously, you've got your baseball bat for hand. There's a tube of toothpaste next to you on the sink. You have to squeeze the toothpaste out onto your other bat and then brush your teeth with that bat, basically. And then fanfare, you've passed that bit. And then the next one, it's like you're in the same space, but you have to do something else, and you have to work out what that is. So in that specific example, it took me a couple of minutes to work it out. But then when you do, it's like, why didn't I think of that? It's all very silly. And it's just, finding really creative ways and silly ways to just use that really basic mechanic and just keep adding to it and putting you in different scenarios. I big fan of it. I was a big fan of What the Golf as well, and I don't know. Did either of you guys play that?
No, I didn't.
No, it's not a VR game though, is it?
No, it's not a VR game. Let's not talk about it.
It's just interesting though how they made that step from non-VR. And it's presumably the dev's first VR game, is it? I don't know.
I think so. Yeah, I only know of them from these two games. But yeah, it's just really inventive. It's one of those. Obviously, I think you get a lot of shooting games in VR. You get a lot of rhythm games. I think this probably falls in line with maybe something like Tentacular, where it's more physics-based comedy almost. It's like kind of a slapstick experience. It's probably about 4 hours from start to finish.
For the main campaign.
For the main story. There is actually a through line. So there is a kind of a story, but it's very silly. But yeah, it's just really, it's kind of wholesome. You can play it with your kids. There's nothing offensive in there at all. It's, just lovely sort of family fun, gleeful, cheery music, sort of brisk. And it's just really inventive. And I think it seems to be not getting as much coverage as some of the other launch titles, but I think it really should be, because it's just genuinely funny. Like, I've been stood by myself playing it, laughing out loud, alone in a room with a white hat on.
I do love that particular brand of VR experience where it just really leans into you look silly waving your arms around with the hat on. So let's really lean into that and double down on how ridiculous you're going to look and make you feel like such a tit. But you don't care because you're just having so much fun and it's just so silly. You're doing sorts of things that you don't normally get to do in games, and it wouldn't be fun doing it if it wasn't in VR. It's just, I don't know, something really wholesome and fun about it.
Yeah, I think it's just perfect for the platform. As I said, it's not a perfect game in that I found it slightly janky at times. In a way, you can kind of forgive that in a game that is kind of, it's almost like one of those
where you have bats for hands. You mean
where you have bats for hands?
Things are going to be janky.
Yeah, exactly. You're trying to put a bit of toast or a bit of bread into a toaster with 2 bats. It's going to be difficult, isn't it? So there's parts like that. The bits that require precision, I would say, are some of them do border on, okay, this is just annoying now. Like a few of them, you need to control a joystick with your 2 bats to guide like paper aeroplanes around, and it's like, all right, this is ridiculous because it's so imprecise having these huge bats and a tiny little joystick. But yeah, it's little things like that. But my biggest downer on this is no platinum trophy.
No.
Yeah. So 100% of it. Well, exactly. That's what I said.
What the plat?
What the plat? Where's the plat? Yeah, so that's a shame. It's not a particularly tough trophy list at all. Most of them are sort of story based. You'll just get them after each level completion, and then a few other little ones. So probably would have been a bit of an easy platinum anyway. But even still, if you're getting 100% trophies, I feel like, come on, don't be stingy. Maybe that's something they'll patch in, because I think they are going to be adding more levels in future updates. So we live in hope.
So will that be like more scenarios you get dropped into to do more?
Exactly.
Things?
Yeah,
That's cool.
exactly. Yeah, so looking forward to that. But yeah, just I guess to summarise, if I had to give it a kind of vomit rating for motion sickness, absolutely, well, not 0. I'd say maybe 1 out of 5 on the vomit scale. Because there was the only reason I give it 1 rather than 0 is there was a few bits towards the end where things got a little bit jittery. Just again going back to that jank, and there was just a couple of moments where I was like,
Are you a fixed character in the levels, or can you move around or turn?
You can actually move around. You can walk in the level. It doesn't really require it, but you're doing a lot of sort of crouching and looking under things and reaching up for stuff. I thought I was going to put a hole in my ceiling playing it earlier. But didn't. So there is a bit of motion. So I'd say if we were talking about moving on from the vomit scale, we're talking about the grumpy old man scale, where you just want to sit down and not move. I'd probably give it a 3, because although it's not fast paced motion, you do have to stand up. You do have to do a lot of movement, and
those squats starting to feel them, were you?
They're starting to pay off, Laurie, let me tell you.
Juicy.
In terms of if we were looking at the WoW scale, I think, I mean, it's not WoW, like it's not going to blow you away. It's graphically nice, very clean, low poly look, but nothing fantastic. I'd probably give it a 3 out of 5 on the WoW scale, just because, I mean, the first bit where the title screen and the What the Bat logo just drops down, that's like that made me wow, because it just drops down and you're like, oh wow. It was genuinely one of those moments, but it's it's not a spectacular game.
I think the wow there could be, is it showing you something new? And obviously you've never had bats for hands before, so that's but as a kind of gameplay mechanic, that is a similar sort of VR thing, tentacular and other things like it as well. So I suppose does it stand out in the VR space for you, do you think?
Yeah, it absolutely does stand out, and I think there's there's enough moments of delight and surprise that probably count as WoW moments that this game kind of specialises in. So absolutely, I'd happy to recommend it and give it the old cross-button certification. So yeah, go and check out What the Bat.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Ben. That's probably another one that I'm going to have to pick up at some point, inevitably now. Well, next up, Alex, you have been playing and reviewing for us a game called Drums Rock. So please tell us about that.
Drums Rock is a rhythm-based action game that essentially turns you into a drumming rock star. You kind of does what it says in the tin. You start up the game straight away. You're sat behind the drum kit. You grab your drumsticks and you get going. Really quite simple, but there is a bit more to it. So it does make quite good use of some of the new features in the VR2. So it uses eye tracking quite a bit, so you can get lost in the music, and if you're starting to learn those songs, close your eyes, keep going, keep drumming. You get nice bonuses sticking in there to encourage you to fully immerse yourself in it. It uses the finger tracking in terms of grabbing the drumsticks. I was going to say drumsticks. That's correct. So put your hands around the sense controllers, grab them from behind your back, pull them out, tap, 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 off you go. It also then uses the haptic feedback to kind of give you that proper kind of feedback from the drums as you're hitting them, so you do feel like you're hitting a drum. But it is, as I say, what it says in the tin, you are sitting there playing the drums, and that is the game. There's various different modes, so there is a story mode, so you go in and it's basically split across 3 acts, and it tells you this story of you fighting demons across hell. So if you kind of think back to those Rock Band days, and you've got your drum kit, each drum's a different colour, and then you've got these enemies flying towards you, which are all basically colour coded to the parts of the drum that you need to hit, and you need to hit them as they're coming towards you, and there's like a perfect point that you're aiming to kind of hit to the beat, and you're wanting to build your combos, you're wanting to build your chains, get as high a score as possible to get 3-star rating across each level. And then the more stars you get, then you unlock Act 2 and Act 3 to kind of progress through the story. And that's kind of it to a T. There's not really a lot more to it. I mean, it kind of not quite jumping to the end, but in terms of that wow factor, when you are going into that game, you feel like a fucking rock star. Like you do sit down there and you're going along, particularly if you know the song. So if you know that song and you're drumming along, you're like, right, I know this beat and I know which bit I want to kind of give it out everything at. But then you do look like an absolute tit. Like, so if you try and capture yourself playing this game, you are going to not look anywhere near as cool as you feel, which is probably the point of VR. Ultimately, that's the experience you want. You want to feel cooler than you look, and you are, and that really does this.
You know, Alex, you sent us that video of yourself playing it, and I showed it to my wife, and she was like, "Oh my god, look how happy he looks playing that game."
It does.
I was like,
that's even worse.
He does look happy. But she was like
totally
genuinely like, "Oh, you need to get this. Look how happy it's making him. You need some of that."
And it does make you happy. Because as I say, when you know that song, you're hitting the beats, you're seeing the combo build up, you're just like, you get more and more into it, and you just want to progress. But then that's kind of where at the same time it then maybe starts to go downhill a little bit, because there's not probably as many songs as you know as you want there to be. So it does have a kind of part of the soundtrack is licensed. So you've got things like I Love Rock and Roll, you've got Bring Me to Life, Evanescence, you've got Black Betty, things like that. But then there's other songs which are more like original songs because they've maybe not had the funds to get the licensed music, and you kind of feel like what they're trying to hit at, but it just doesn't have the same impact. And I think it would really benefit from a bigger, more licensed soundtrack.
Can you buy that separately?
Not,
sell that? No,
not at the moment. There doesn't seem to be any additional tracks that you can buy. Certainly not that I've found.
That's a big miss, isn't it? Because that's what a lot of these games, like I think Just Dance, for example, they've got a bloody subscription service where it's just so you can keep fresh new songs coming in.
I think
that's a shame.
If it could do that, it would really kind of give it more of a tail. You would keep going, bring those tracks in, give you that choice of the ones you want to play. I think there's certain ones in there, and as you're kind of progressing through the story mode, it's not like you pick a track to play. It's like you're working through specific tracks.
So do you unlock new songs then?
Yeah.
So that's quite good, because I guess you can get to that point where I like that song, I've unlocked it, brilliant. And that's quite a cool thing. And
you don't need to do them all either. So basically, as long as you kind of hit that, it's like most games, if you hit that star threshold, that opens up the next act. But obviously, your completionist, you want to go through and get each of the 3 stars. And you basically, the stars are, you get 1 star if you hit the score target, you get 1 star if you hit the combo target, and then you get 1 star if you hit the overall percentage, accuracy target.
Right.
And if you get to a certain point in the song where your accuracy goes below a certain level, it'll just fail you and you need to start again. So there is a bit of a difficulty spike when it gets to a stage where it's supposed to have scaled difficulty in terms of how you're playing, so it'd be intuitive enough to kind of give you the level of difficulty that thinks you're at. But I felt like it suddenly went from really easy to just really overwhelming. very quickly, which was a shame because I could have thought, well, just let me play it all on easy and I'll enjoy it, or let me play it all on medium. I don't want you to scale the difficulty for me. I just want to enjoy it. And if that's the case, when you unlock the tracks, you also have, like, outside of the campaign mode, you've got a challenge mode where it's basically like all the tracks you've unlocked, whatever level you want to play them at, and then just as high a score as you can get to go on the leaderboard, and it gives you leaderboards against, like, whether it's worldwide, local friends, etc., that you can just go and challenge each other to try and hit the right song.
That's me buying this game.
There's a leaderboard.
That answers one of my questions. I was going to ask you just really quickly before I forget, is there any Coldplay?
No. Unfortunately not, which is gutting. I would really like a little bit of Coldplay in some of these games. I'd love some Coldplay in some of them.
And when you play it, what do you see? Because often in these games you just kind of see the stuff coming down the pipe you need to hit. But is there like a stadium arena, like an audience in the background?
So basically the setting is you're in hell, and it's like different arenas within hell. So whether like one of them you're like in a hell cafe.
There's no Coldplay.
No. One of them you're like on the highway to hell almost. So you're sitting behind a drum kit that's almost on a highway. It's just these different settings, but there's not that many of them, so they're just fairly static. There's not a lot going on round about you, other than the demons kind of flying towards you.
Okay, that does sound pretty cool, but also like that sort of thing, because an experience like this is the whole kind of wish fulfillment, putting you on stage as a drummer with a band playing these amazing songs in front of a huge arena full of people cheering and stuff. It just would be such a cool feeling. So it's a shame almost that if you're going to have such a good kind of recreation of the feeling of playing drums, you try and have that feeling of like playing a gig as well, and being on stage and having a crowd go wild for it.
That would be nice. One of the things it does do, which is a wee bit different though, is it has some like boss battles as you go through the campaign, so it changes up the gameplay elements. So one of the ones is you basically have, rather than have drumsticks, you've got boxing gloves and you're boxing the drums. So it's just like changing up the gameplay a wee bit without really changing it that much. You're just kind of, obviously a different experience, getting a bit closer to the drums and giving them a proper bang on them. One of the things I didn't mention as well on the main gameplay is like, obviously the finger tracking on the drumsticks is pretty cool, but like to get boosts and expand your sword, you can flip them, throw them, you need to catch them to like kind of keep going.
I was going to say, can you
bounce them off,
throw them up in the air?
Yeah, bounce them off the drums themselves, and they'll just kind of spin round. You need to catch it again. It just kind of builds it, and if you close your eyes or you focus on the monitor, it builds the meter to kind of increase that multiplier to get a better score.
Awesome.
But it's good, but it's not. It's got flaws. One of them being that lack of like proper licensed soundtrack. There is enough there, but it could do a bit more. And the other thing is the tracking seems to be a little bit off. And some of the symbols in particular, like you can just go right through them and you're not hitting them. And I had issues with actually the finger tracking, so it wouldn't actually hold or pick up the drumstick. It just kind of kept dropping it. And I did restart the game and go back into it, and it was fine. And then it did it again, and it just feels like a few little bugs in there that just need tying out. So they've tried to use a lot of the features of the VR2, and they're maybe just not quite there yet. But hopefully these are things that could get patched. Overall,
nice. Just really quickly, Laurie, you can tune out for this if you want. The trophy lists, Alex, how's that?
Trophy list, all right. I think it's not going to be an easy platinum, because I think it does require you to probably like get 3 stars on every song and every difficulty. So it's not going to be 1, but it is quite generous with like silver trophies and stuff like that. So you're going to do a decent dent in your overall score, but it's not going to be the easiest of platinums compared to some.
Good to know.
They need to do a Whiplash DLC where you can have J.K. Simmons just like shouting at you for not doing good enough and stuff, and just keep playing until your fingers bleed. That's what I want.
In terms of that kind of sickness scale, none. Very low on that. I don't think I had any feeling of nausea at all. You're seated the whole time, so there's nothing there in terms of movement. In terms of the old man scale, you do need to. Depends how much you want to get involved in this game. You can probably sit there and just tap away at the drums, or you can really engage in the experience and you can give it loud.
Play it properly.
Yeah. So if you're doing it properly, you could probably get a good 4 out of 5 there and get a bit of a sweat on. In
Nice.
terms of that wow factor, initially it's there, but I think from kind of what you were saying, there's no real, when you turn the game on, it's a bit like, please sit down for the best experience, and then it just kind of loads up and you're sitting behind the drums. There's no real proper like introduction or opening sequence or anything like that to like, this is really cool. So, but the experience is great, like in terms of that feeling. So I'd probably sit at about a 3, but there is a demo, and rather than giving this some kind of cross-button certification and maybe say go and try the demo might be enough for you. But if you love the demo, then it's worth kind of investing the rest in it. But good game.
Rock on.
And it's £16 on the
It's not the most expensive.
PS Store.
If it's something in that kind of rhythm and you've got a keenness for drumming, then it's worth a shot.
Yeah. Great. Well, thank you very much, Alex. So to end the show, then I am going to be talking about the game I've been playing, which I think is one that has been around for a while now. People are going to know, but it is Moss. Now, Moss is a 3D platformer with a strong emphasis on environmental puzzle solving. You are cast as a godlike reader looking down into the levels, and it kind of has a kind of real doll's house feel where you're looking down into this world, and it's kind of a miniature world that you can really poke your head into and look around corners and really poke about with things. And you can control a tiny little mouse who is not called Moss, it's called Quill, which is very confusing. And you have to control her around the levels, over obstacles, mild sort of light combat you have to deal with, and the whole emphasis of the game is every bit of sort of platforming you have to do, you have to help out. So you have to kind of reach into the world and pull the platforms into place, or bring her what she needs to be able to traverse through the different levels. And in any combat situations, you can reach in and grab the enemies and sort of hold them in place, so Quill you can then easily run over and attack them. And you're doing all this with the DualSense controllers, and it just feels so natural how you can kind of you just sort of reach in, grab an enemy, whilst the other hand is moving Quill, and then just whacks it and takes it out. And it's incredibly satisfying. It kind of almost feels like you're cheating a little bit, but that's not. That's the game. That's the mechanic, where you can kind of, it's like Quill's this tiny little mouse, and kind of tiny, and you've got these kind of big enemies that are much larger than her, and you just like, she shouldn't be able to defend herself, but because you can just sort of reach in and just grab stuff, you just kind of feel like this kind of godlike figure that can help her out and guide her on her journey. And Quill knows you're there, and everyone else knows you're there. They can see you up in the sky. So it's a kind of great relationship you have with Moss. You have this amazing connection with her, and she's animated beautifully. The way that she kind of runs around and rolls and shimmies along walls, it's so well done. You can't imagine. It's a kind of a cliche to say this, but it's kind of Pixar level quality. Really reminds me of Ratatouille, with the way that the mouse there can kind of walk and run and does things. It's very similar to how Quill moves. And there's little bits where you can kind of reach down and high five her when you overcome a particularly tricky obstacles and stuff. And it's just so, you really do feel that connection, and the narrator kind of refers to you in the story as if you're there, and you don't say anything. You can't communicate with her beyond kind of touching and moving things for her, but it really works well, and it just really looks amazing. The game, it's people say that on PSVR2 the visuals have been really cleaned up and enhanced, and it just really comes across at its best, and I can confirm it does look lovely. And in terms of the wow factor, here you kind of move from screen to screen, very quick to get through each screen, and you sort of walk out the edge of it, and then the camera kind of pans onto the next location, and you can see Quill running down from where you've just come from, and then you have to go through another bit, and then you kind of you have to sort of find the exit of the stage, and you run off stage right. And so it's changed. The scene changes quite frequently, and every single time it's just, you spend the first 10 seconds just marveling at what you can see and looking around, almost kind of my texture, because there's times I would miss sort of important things happening. Like you had to kind of look back to, oh no, Moss is doing something, Quill is doing something here that I need to need to pay attention to, but you're just so in awe of the surroundings and looking at them, and they tell the environments tell a beautiful story as well, with the little village the mice live in, and the journey that she goes on, and the ruins you move through, going back to the old town that you had to flee. So yeah, if you couldn't tell, I love this game.
Yeah. I'm right there with you. I started it today, and I just instantly fell in love with it as well. It's so magical. Like, I'm just charmed by it right from the start. You're right about just that feeling of sticking your head into the world and looking around corners and stuff like that, and the little collectibles you can get. Like, as soon as you get to a new screen, I'm just scoping out, looking around each corner, trying to find them.
You're thinking about those trophies, Ben.
It didn't cross my mind. But
It's almost like people that if you like really intricate Lego sets, you can sort of poke your head in and look around the Lego sets, and you see all the little details that the Lego people have hidden in the level. It's like that, because as you say, you every screen, I think nearly every screen's got a hidden scroll in it that you have to find, and they're usually hidden just out of sight. As you're looking at it, you have to kind of move your head in and really inspect and look around the scene, and that just gives you such a kind of intimate feel of it, having to do that.
it's just such a perfect game for VR. Like, I feel like that this, obviously I haven't played as much as you guys, but it just seems like such a clever use of VR, because you typically think of VR being a first person kind of thing, and obviously effectively you are in first person still, because you're this omnipotent being, but you're still controlling the main character as well, and it just works brilliantly and it looks stunning. Laurie, you said it reminded you of a kind of intricate Lego set. It reminded me of one of your great loves, and that is Captain Toad Treasure Tracker. A little bit, right? Because essentially each level is this diorama. You're guiding this little character around, and you're manipulating the world. And it's got that same level of charm, albeit looks just stunning. The bit right at the start where you come out of a little cave and there's just a couple of deer in the background. And obviously the deer are massive because you're just a tiny little mouse. Or you're controlling a tiny little mouse. You're a god. You get what I mean. And when I just sat and just watched for, it's just beautiful. Really, really gorgeous game.
And it does feel like a game that Nintendo would make. And imagine if there was a Zelda game, like a Zelda VR game. I'd want it to be exactly like this. Just imagine going through the dungeons, and instead of Quill, you're controlling Link. It would be so good. And it
just keep those dreams, Laurie, because you're never going to get them.
Labo Zelda.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that kind of storybook feel, because the narrator, she does a really good job, and I love the fact how she puts on the voices when she's doing different characters.
Yeah.
And it's so, again, I keep using this word, but it's so charming, and it just does really feel like you're in the story. And obviously the whole theme of it is you are the reader. You start off in a big cathedral, and you're looking down, reading this book, and that's the kind of role that you're playing. So it makes sense that you've got this narrator narrating it all. And it's a proper game. It's not like a VR experience or silly thing or anything. It's a proper game. You can sink, and I have done this week. I've finished the game this week. I've kind of binged on it and sunk several evenings into it, just playing, not wanting to play anything else. It's so good. And there's this version of it includes the DLC that was released that adds an extra hour or so to it, an extra few challenge. There's kind of 3 sections to it, and it's woven through the main game, so you can't miss it really. It's well
is
worth.
That what it is? I came across that today actually.
Yeah, well worth doing, because there's some good rewards for it, and the challenges it's quite different to the rest of it, because they added it afterwards, obviously. So yeah, it's quite different to the rest of it. It's got a different feel to it.
God, that really is well woven in, because I just assumed that was part of the main game, but the fact that that's DLC that they added, that's the way they've done it is really, really clever. Laurie, you mentioning Zelda dungeons there did make me think. One thing I don't know if I necessarily want to ding it for this, but the bit I'm at now feels very dungeony, and it almost feels like there's no end to the dungeon. Like I've been in that bit for quite a long time, and I was kind of like I'm itching to get out into the kind of overworld again a little bit. I don't know if, without giving too much away, but it feels like you're enjoying this outdoor space and then you go into a dungeon, and at the moment that feels like it's slightly outstayed its welcome, just a tad, if I had to be, critical of anything at all. But this is from someone who, in a Zelda game, I like to just get a dungeon out of the way and then go and enjoy the overworld bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite a short game, and you're probably further along than you think in terms of completing it, because you do leave that area you're in that you're talking about. You go into, and I won't spoil the journey you go on, but you do move into a different area pretty soon. Okay. But there's not a huge amount more. After 2 hours, and it does feel like, and I would probably use that as a criticism, it's a very short game and it ends very abruptly, almost. It must have been very frustrating if this came out and there was no book 2, because I'm happy that I've got book 2 I can go straight into to play, and I'll probably have a break and play some other stuff too, but it's just nice to know I can go straight into book 2, because it does, you do think, oh right, okay, is that it? And I think if it felt like when the devs were making it originally, they must have got to the point they got to and thought, okay, let's just put this out as one game, and then we'll release the rest of it later. So they sell this as an individual game for £22 for book 1, and book 2 you can buy for £22, or you can buy both of them together for a bundle price of £32.50. And I would absolutely recommend doing that in the first place, because you are not going to want to finish this game and then be like, oh, that was nice, I'll leave that now. You will want to keep playing it, I promise you, because it is excellent. Would be my only criticism of it, is that on its own it doesn't feel like a full game. You need that book 2 to finish the story. Well, continue the story at least. I don't know if it finishes the story or not.
It definitely feels like that poster boy though for third person VR. Like, this is the one that shows you that it can work, like controlling that third person perspective. Like, some of the puzzles are really cool, like kind of thinking about it and you're watching what's going on, and sometimes you don't even realise it's a puzzle. You're like, oh right, okay, I need to get that to there, do this, do that, and it's just so nicely woven in, like everything else. It's so well thought through, so well implemented, and for all you're saying it's not a VR experience, it's a proper game, it's still a bit of an experience as well, because you're experiencing that world.
Oh no, it absolutely is. I don't mean, I meant by that, it's not like a novelty experience. It's a proper
it's
game.
A meaty game, but to Alex's point, it does still have that, ooh, I couldn't do this in a 2D game. Like, no, there's that whole thing about it as well. But yeah.
And even that godlike thing, like, oh, I'm playing this game, and as you say, no, I can hold the enemies, like, but I can also destroy all these little things with my hands, and I can go into, like, see, when you realise you don't need to go and take Quill to, like, break all the barrels and stuff, and you can do it. I'm like, yeah, this is more fun.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
that's
so
good. I'll try that out.
Yeah.
You can
just
do it
reach
with
in
your
and
hand.
smash them. Yeah.
That's cool.
So in terms of the vomit scale, there's just none really, because it's not that sort of game. You're not moving yourself. Your head, you're kind of in a fixed position. You're looking at a fixed. It's as vomit inducing as it is looking around the Lego set. It's fine. I had no discomfort at all. And in terms of the grumpy old man, you play the game sitting down. You can get up and look around and try and get a better view on things. You don't have to do that at all, though. You can just sit on the spot. And I played this game sat back on the sofa, just kind of really put my feet up. It's a very chilled out, easy game to play. And the wellness factor of it is absolutely there, because the different scenes that you see constantly never cease to amaze. There's not enough games where I think you are at this tiny scale and the world's massive. There should be more games like that, because it's such a neat trick to see that kind of sense of scale and awe, and that's obviously what VR is very good at delivering.
Yep.
And I think I've made pretty clear now that it is a decent game in its own right. There are maybe a few areas. I think it can be quite a simple game. But it does mix it up. It does get a bit more complex as you're going through it. But I'm looking forward to book 2. I hope they kind of layer on some more mechanics to it as well. And I would say do the DLC part, those optional bits, because they do give some extra mechanics that are well worth. They make it a lot they're a lot of fun to use. So it's well worth doing those as soon as you can. Without being too spoilery in there. So yeah, absolutely gets the cross players stamp of approval.
It's almost a must buy, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if you have a VR headset, and people said this even when it was out on PSVR originally, it was always the game that was like, oh, that was always a game that was tempting me to just jump in and get a PSVR despite everything. So I'm very glad it's here on day one and I can finally play it, and I'd really strongly recommend it to people.
Absolutely. Cool.
Okay, well, that does seem like a great note to end on then. So, everyone, thank you again for listening. If anyone fancies getting a bit more involved with our fellow players, we would love to have you. And you can join our Discord and chat all things PSVR2. There's been some new people joining, I think, recently, which is great to see. Yeah, if you're looking for people just to hang out with, gush about VR, please do swing by, and also email us with any suggestions for games we should be playing, or just things that you've been playing that you just want to share your thoughts on. Or if you've got any questions for us or anything, you can contact us at crossbuttonvr@gmail.com. And obviously, last but absolutely not least, big thanks to all of our patrons for supporting the work that we do. I've been your host, Laurie. These two have been Ben and Alex, and we will see you again next time. Until then, it's goodbye.